The gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Hice, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We just saw one of the greatest public-private partnerships in the history of our country, and it was led by President Trump's administration. Despite the villainization of Operation Warp Speed by Democrats, the federal government and private companies invested literally hundreds of millions of dollars to develop and manufacture COVID-19 vaccines and candidates thereof, not knowing whether or not those attempts would be approved. The result was that the first vaccine was approved in less than 12 months from the discovery of COVID-19, and 3 vaccines were ultimately approved, with others still waiting in line. And many are now actually praising Operation Warp Speed, and frankly, they are incorrectly giving the Biden administration accolades for the brevity of the program, when in fact this current administration is absolutely not responsible for spearheading this whatsoever. This past summer, the House Select Subcommittee on Coronavirus exhibited skepticism of Operation Warp Speed. In fact, the Democratic member who chairs that particular subcommittee sent a letter to HHS Secretary Alex Azar regarding Operation Warp Speed, and he made this quote: "A lack of transparency in the development of a coronavirus vaccine, especially on an accelerated timeline, could contribute to the growth of anti-vaccination sentiment," end quote. This type of rhetoric, frankly, nearly, and certainly could have, and I think it did, it undermined one of the greatest achievements medically in our country's history. Unfortunately, the Trump administration did not bow to that kind of outrageous posturing by the Democrats. But once again, our country demonstrated how incredible our people are, as our greatest minds literally came together at one of the darkest times in recent history. But now the United States may again let me put it this way, now we might never again be a leader in pharmaceutical innovation like we were with Operation Warp Speed, if the Biden administration continues to pander to some of its most progressive members, and like he did in endorsing an intellectual property waiver to the World Trade Organization. Listen to that. He supported and endorsed an intellectual property waiver. That's dangerous. That's thinking that is incomprehensible to me. Waiving intellectual property for COVID vaccines or any other type of medicine will make the United States and the world more reliant on countries like China and India for pharmaceuticals. And that's frightening when you look at and consider that their vaccines right now for COVID are far less effective than are ours. And frankly, it puts the future of drugs and vaccines that were created under a program like Operation Warp Speed at tremendous risk. And then you have countries like South Africa and India. They would like a resolution that would force pharmaceutical companies to share their COVID vaccines and therapy IP with developing countries, so they fall right in line with this type waiver endorsement. And look, this is supported not only by our current administration, it's supported by other low-income countries, progressive groups, and more than 100 congressional Democrats right here serving today. Now, why do these countries want to end patent protection? That question's got to be answered. Well, they say they want to expand access to vaccines, but access for lower income countries is already available. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal in April where Merck announced such a thing. Fortunately, we have some European countries and friends who are smart enough to realize the importance of intellectual property. In fact, Germany Chancellor Angela Merkel rejected this whole idea of waiving COVID vaccine patents And she said, in the first place, it would not make more vaccines available, and it would weaken innovation in the future. So, look, Madam Chair, I just think it's very important that we protect those who are innovative inventors of medications. Certainly, those that abuse the rights we should deal with, but we've got to protect the ability for these people to
Gentleman's
recoup.
time has expired.
I yield back.
The gentleman yields.